Welcome to the next episode of Who Do You Want to Be? And in this episode, we tackle something very interesting. And I'm sure there are going to be very different opinions on this as we're progressing in this age. How many of you, when you use AI, you are open about it? How many of you are ashamed or almost you feel like you need to hide that you've been using AI? And the reason I bring this up is from the people I speak to and the events I'm going to, I do feel there is a percentage of people who are not that comfortable disclosing that they have used AI to support their work or to augment their work. And this is what we want to discuss today. Today, in this day and age where AI is being integrated into everything we do, there are so many advantages of using AI to augment our work, and there is really no reason to hide us using it. If we are not using the tools properly, it's going to be very obvious that we're using AI. And that's really when things become questionable because people start wondering, this is obviously written by AI. Have you put any time, energy of your own into this? And that's where the questions start coming up, which is why that's why a lot of people don't want to admit that they've used AI. But the truth is, they've not used AI properly. If you're able to use AI properly, it will help you reduce your time and energy on any task that you want to do. And that's really what you should be focused on. And anybody you're working with should also be focused on that, not about if you used AI to do the job, but they should be focused on have you done the job well enough that it's acceptable and it's going to help whatever the purpose of that job is. An easy example would be I recently went to an event and one of the ladies said that she wrote her CV with ChatGPT and submitted it. And the interviewer asked her, did you use ChatGPT to write the CV? And she said that she froze and she wasn't really sure what to say. And she almost felt bad for admitting that she did use ChatGPT to write her CV. Now, in my opinion, there's nothing wrong with using ChatGPT to write your CV as long as the information is correct and it's honest. Now, if you're making a fictional CV, then yes, there's a problem there, but that's not a ChatGPT problem. That's a problem that you have as a human being that you are lying in your CV. How do you feel about this, Sabine? You work in organizations. What is the general sentiment of people using AI? Is it quite open in organizations? Or are people still hiding it? How do you feel?
I'll bring in an example that I think is a very good metaphor for this. So in the 1980s, there was a pop band in Germany, and that band was very specific. And the official public opinion wasn't very good of this band. And yet, it was the most selling pop band for years in Germany. So even though everybody officially said, I'm not listening to them, I'm not buying their CDs, the majority of German citizens actually did. Otherwise, that band, wouldn't have been the number one selling band in Germany for a couple of years. And it just reminds me so much of what you were saying, because ChatGPT is such an extremely popular tool. It is used by millions of people. So everybody seems to claim, I'm not using it. But in the end, everybody, or at least most of the people, will be using it, right? So for one, why do we then say we wouldn't use it, even though it's very obvious that we do? What is the motivation behind that? And I think that when it comes to the motivation of wanting to hide that I'm using ChatGPT, it's mainly because we do not want to admit that we needed help to fulfill a task. In your example, we do not want to admit that we needed help to write our CV. But the big question behind this is, what is the problem about accepting help to start with? And then also, what was our motivation behind wanting that help? For the CV, most likely, it's a lengthy document. So I just wanted to save time by asking ChatGPT to generate the content. Maybe it was also that this was the first CV I ever wrote in my life. I didn't know about the structure. So before guessing around or taking the risk to actually deliver a CV in a wrong structure, I rather make sure, and I'm asking ChatGPT to give me, let's say, the most common structure for a CV these days. So I would say those are very legitimate motivations or reasons to ask for help in this sense. In the end, I just wanted to make sure that whatever I deliver is the best possible output that I can generate. So I think that when it comes to ChatGPT, what is most important is just really that we become aware of our very own motivations. What are we actually looking for? But then also to take the output and ask ourselves, okay, what do I now need to do with this output that I'm confident enough to also admit, okay, I used ChatGPT. It gave me, for example, the structure, it gave me the outline, but everything else is my own creation. ChatGPT doesn't know where I went to school in the 1990s, for example. So I still had to put that in. ChatGPT doesn't know what I want to learn about in the next 10 years. So I put that in. Things like this. So it's a collaboration. Let's put it that way. And there's nothing wrong about that. I'm not delivering content that is completely out of my hands. I'm not delivering content that I had no influence on. That's not the case. So there is no need for me to be ashamed of using ChatGPT, especially knowing that probably everybody else in my immediate proximity uses it too.
You have lots of people now checking on AI detection tools whether something has been written by AI or not, and then judging it. And I feel that's a little silly, for lack of a better word, because you shouldn't be judging whether this is AI generated. You should be judging whether it is good quality or not, and if it serves the purpose it's been meant to serve or not. You might want to check, for example, in these AI detection tools, you can check the originality score of any work. So if you really wanted to check something, you could check the originality percentage of it to see how much is not at all AI generated. But again, I don't know what the value of that is, because at the end of the day, if the final output is legitimate, serves the purpose it was made for, how does it matter how that person did it? And the person who did it, if they've done a good job, and if they've managed to do an exemplary job using ChatGPT in an hour, as opposed to not using ChatGPT and working on it for 3 days, only to get the same result, or maybe not as good a result, what's the point? It's gone completely against the whole purpose of large language models like ChatGPT, which are there to save us time and energy and still be able to deliver, if not the same quality of work, better quality work. But again, you're not going to get that better quality work unless you work very closely with it, collaborating with it. And the minute you're not collaborating with the tools and just copy pasting whatever you get from the tools and submitting them as is, that's when the flags come up. That's when the person across the table is skeptical. And that's when the questions start coming, and rightly so, because they don't see any originality in what you've presented. The line might seem blurry, but it's really not. It's about, are you using this tool to augment and better your work? Or are you using this tool just to get the job done without putting any of your own effort in it? And if it's the latter, then yes, you will be pointed fingers at, and it will not be appreciated that you've used these tools.
Yeah, I agree with you. I mean, in the end, it's also really about what is this piece of AI generated content actually for? I mean, in this scenario with the CV, let's just get back to that one more time. The CV is the starting point for a conversation, the job interview, and the job interview is the actual platform in which the recruiter gets to know the applicant. I myself had so many job interviews where the CV wasn't accurate. For example, because the spans weren't correct, or because the job wasn't really described the way that the person actually conducted the job, or whatever it was. So back then, of course, I would never have asked, did you write that CV yourself or not, to start with, because it didn't matter. Back then, for example, I could have asked in school if my dad could do my homework. Then I wouldn't have done it myself, right? But I would still have handed it in. I would still have felt bad about the fact that I would have handed in homework that I hadn't done myself, but I would have received the good grade for it. I wouldn't have learned anything from it though, because the idea of homework is that I'm applying my knowledge, or that I'm intensifying my knowledge, or that I'm learning something new. So I failed it in that sense by asking my dad to do my homework for me. It's the same for a CV. Whoever puts the CV down doesn't really matter, because in the end, I am the one who is sitting at school for the exam and I have to have all the knowledge. In the end, I'm the one who's sitting in the interview situation and I have to talk about the actual experiences that I have. I have to prove the actual skills that I have. So whoever created that CV doesn't really matter in that situation anymore. And to be frank with you, from an HR perspective, I appreciate people who understand that technology is a part of how we operate now. I appreciate people who do not get scared from, another form of intelligence that's out there. But I prefer people who start to embrace it. I prefer people who take up the challenge and who at least, give it a try and see, okay, what's that output? How does this actually work? Is this valuable for me or not? Because in the end, this is what everybody will have to be able to do. So I rather speak with people who are already getting into this, who get a taste of it, and who can then decide, okay, this is not for me, or okay, I understand that whatever I get is a starting point, but it's up to me to fill in the gaps. It's up to me to turn this into something that I can actually call my own.
Exactly. So if you've not used a tool to augment your work or do something properly or truthfully, then yes, you should feel guilty using it because you're not using it honestly. But if you're using it just to augment your work and to save time and energy, there's absolutely no reason for you to feel like you cannot admit that you've been using this tool. So next times you feel a little conscious of using ChatGPT, if you are 100% happy with the output and you're 100% confident with what you're submitting as a result of working, collaborating with a tool like ChatGPT to come up with it, there's nothing to hide or nothing to feel embarrassed or ashamed of that you took the help of a tool like ChatGPT. However, if you've been lazy and someone catches you being lazy because they can see that there's no quality work here, and then somebody flags it saying, hey, this looks ChatGPT written, then, you probably need to go back and rethink how you use ChatGPT and why you did that, because it's not really got anything to do with ChatGPT. It's got to do with your own integrity, your own ethics, your own way of being truthful about who you are to whoever you're dealing with.
Mm.
So on that note, we are in this era where AI is entering our lives. It's been brought into our world to help us save time, energy, money, and augment our knowledge and our skills. There's so many advantages to using it. Let's use it properly so that we can save time, money, energy while still doing really high quality work.
This is a brilliant point, Abba. I just heard you use the word integrity. And I think in the end, this is what it all comes back to, because when we are using such a tool, as we said earlier, right, we have specific motivations, we have reasons why we are using this tool. So once we made the decision that we consciously want to use this tool, we should also defend it. If anybody is asking us, did we use ChatGPT? Why not own up to it and say, yes, I've used it because it saves me a lot of time, because I can be a lot more productive, because when ChatGPT is writing this, let's say, 5-page document for me, I can do many other things in the same time. You can ask me anything that is written in this document, and I can prove to you that I know everything that's there, and I can even add a lot of more context to it. Just because this document has been created by ChatGPT doesn't mean that it doesn't equal the knowledge that I have. So you might as well challenge people who criticize you about using ChatGPT. And that, to be very honest with you, also leads me to asking the question, why are they against using ChatGPT? Just like I'm having a motivation of using it, they will have a motivation of being against it. So ask them very frankly, why would I not be using ChatGPT for something like this? Or what makes you think that because I am using the help of ChatGPT, the quality of my output would be minor or less valuable than me doing it 100% by myself? It's rather the opposite. I am being smart enough to embrace AI, saving myself time, and I am still making sure that what I'm delivering to you is of the highest quality. And then see what they have to say. It is an invitation as well to just give the question right back and to ask, what is wrong about using it? And let's see if they have an actual opinion about it. So my request would just really be, for one, know your own motivations of why you want to use ChatGPT and what for. But then also make sure that you are preserving your own integrity. Can you defend the output of ChatGPT? If you can, feel free and use it. If you can't, then change it or add on to it until you get to a stage where you say, all right, I use ChatGPT to get me started, but everything else is mine. So now I can honestly say that this is my product. It's up to you how you use it, but just make sure that however you decide, you feel good about it and you're confident about it. So take a moment to reflect on your using of ChatGPT and let us know if you ever make any interactions or have interactions with people who tell you not to use ChatGPT, and whether you can find out what their motivations are against ChatGPT. We're very much looking forward to hearing from you, and we'll see you next week.